Hey class, welcome to Module 2. So this week we're going to be talking about the balance sheet. And so first it's important to distinguish between valuation principles and policies and the actual valuation method used to value a business. The latter depends on the former because there are so many different types of valuation principles within different asset classes and liabilities and different types of equity. So for instance, if you're looking here at the screen, inventories. And so we've got the lower of cost or market, but you can also choose LIFO, FIFO, weighted average method, or specific use under GAAP. You can't use LIFO under IFRS. Then if you look at debt, you can either use the amortization method for most debt, but in some cases you can use fair market value. Then when you look at intangibles, you have to ask yourself, was it internally generated? Was it purchased? Is it impaired? Different things like that. When considering liabilities, you have to you want to be on the lookout for special purpose entities. These are often set up to create and issue collateralized debt obligations. You probably heard about that in the news in the last 5 or so years. Then you have off-balance sheet types of financing. You'll find that kind of thing in the notes. I mean, it's essentially the equivalent of a loan, but for whatever reason, it didn't have commercial substance or it didn't qualify as a loan, so they didn't have to record it as debt, but they're still obligated to actually make the payment. So you want to look for that. Leases, as you may know from your general accounting or principles class, that you can either have a capital or an operating lease. In a capital, you're going to be capitalizing the actual present value of all the payments if you are the person who is leasing it, and then you'll depreciate that over time, and eventually that will come off the books over time, as opposed to where an operating lease you just expense it. So it's a credit to cash and that's a debit to expense. So very different treatment there. It will completely change the way that your balance sheet looks, and it will also change the way your income statement looks. So you could have very similar types of lease scenarios, but different accounting treatment. So you'll want to look for that. And then of course contingencies like legal contingencies. Legal contingencies, those are especially important because a lot of that, the probability of a lawsuit or a settlement, some sort of legal matter, is really the opinion of general counsel or management. And so if they don't think that a settlement or an outcome is probable, then they may not record it. They'll just note it in the footnotes. So it's difficult to get a good handle on that, but it's just something that you should look for in the notes and try to understand better. Then of course retirement benefits. That's talking about pensions, PBOs, pension benefit obligations. So, and then of course under owner's equity, you got to ask yourself: is it a simple or complex capital structure? Meaning, is it just plain vanilla equity and then debt, or do we have some sort of hybrid equity? Do we have repurchase rights, stock options, preferred stock, all those sorts of things? If something is convertible or you have the option to do something, then that automatically dilutes the value of the equity. And if you're calculating an earnings per share calculation, then you would factor in all of those things, and you then calculate a diluted earnings per share calculation. So that is it for this week. And if you have any questions, you can either contact me via cell or email, and I'll be happy to answer those.